Hi, I'm Alex Palt, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces. Pardon if I'm a little muffled, but I'm visiting a friend, and we're wearing masks to be good. I'm here with Peter. He's a very cool guy. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Alex. Nice to meet you.
And we're at our friend Sonny's wholesale watch shop. Come on, Sonny, say hi real quick. Hi.
So, hi everybody, nice to meet you guys.
And so Sonny gave us the opportunity to bring his friend Peter here, and we're going to talk a little bit about watches. I brought some of my funkiest pieces to show Peter to get his ideas because he's a watch guy. And then because Sonny was so nice to give us the venue, we're going to talk about some of his, and also these are some really nice pieces. But let's start. What are you wearing? Do the watch check on your part.
A Black Bay 58. 39 millimeter.
The 39 millimeter Black Bay 58. I really liked it. I was looking at it earlier. It's very accessible.
Yeah, it's because I have a small wrist. It really suits me. 39 millimeter to 40 millimeter is about my size. 42, 43 starts getting too big for my small wrist. Yeah.
Well, frankly, I have big hands with small wrists myself, and 42 is about as big as I want to go. Okay. I've got a Breitling, which is 46, but the Breitling's got a little bit of a presentation that it doesn't wear as big. You know, since we're talking about the watches, let me pull out one. Yeah. This is the Breitling. It's the GMT, and it's big, but it because of the white ring and all, it wears a little smaller.
Yeah.
It presents itself a little smaller.
And because of the lug-to-lug width, it does present smaller. It's a beautiful watch. Wow.
And the nice thing about GMT, you can always do the second time zone thing.
Yeah, of course. It's very convenient.
And but it's not a true GMT in the fact that it doesn't have jumping hours. So I can set the GMT hand independently, but I can't set the hour hand independently, like for example in an Explorer 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I understand. Still a beautiful piece.
Thank you. And we're going to be zooming in on all of these, so we'll put in little splices, close-ups of all the watches we talk about so you can all take a look interspersed during this conversation. So here's the Breitling Navitimer GMT up close. As you see, it's got the slide rule dial, and it's got the GMT hand. And I have a deeper video on that in the archive, so please look it up. So we'll go back to our conversation. So, I'll do a wristwatch check of my own. I'm wearing, because I wanted to impress these gentlemen, and sometimes you don't need money to impress, sometimes you just have to have an interesting watch. And I've got the Accutron tuning fork here, the Space View. What are your thoughts on this one?
Very interesting watch, and it's the original 60s version that you've had.
It's been refurbished. There was a guy in Russia does it.
Refurbished. It's a beautiful watch, beautiful watch. And Bulova has re-released these and released new models. As you
the new Accutrons.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful. But Bulova makes some really great watches.
They really did. In fact, I have another Bulova here, a micro rotor. This is the Bulova Ambassador. This one's also from the 60s, and it's got the Burin micro rotor in it. Again, I'll make sure that we do some close-ups on this stuff. But there you go. Tell me what you think of that one.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a very elegant-looking watch.
What do you think of that micro rotor movement?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really impressed. I'd never heard of this watch before.
Well, you know, the thing about some of these is that they get obscure. They get popular, because in the 60s, these were actually very popular. Yeah, sure. It's like G.I. Joes, right? Everybody uses them, and then they get used up, and then nobody has them anymore.
Yeah.
And here's the Bulova Ambassador, a lovely micro rotor movement. It really is a nice piece. The only other micro rotor of its day was the Burin. I'm sorry, this is the Burin. The only other micro rotor of its day was the pole router, the Universal Genève. And of course, nowadays there are lots of micro rotors, but they're all at the very high end of the scale. If you want a micro rotor for $1,000 or less, you're going to have to go vintage, like something like this, or some of the newer. I understand now there's some newer, nice micro rotors coming out of China. They're worth looking into because I'm actually pleased with my Chinese-made tourbillon. The key is to get one with a very clean design. So let's go back to our conversation.
Truly a lovely watch. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Are there any types of movements that you are interested in? Like any types that catch your fancy? You know, like are you into perpetuals? Are you into, I don't know. I mean, when you think about it, like a Fusei chain movement or something really cool, you know, some constant escapement or some, you know, exotic stuff, or you just like watches that look good?
I just like watches in general, and I like watches that, you know, that look nice, but I don't have a budget high enough to be able to buy high-end watches. So
Tudor's pretty high-end.
I was very fortunate on this particular one because I was able to get it at a good price. But my main passion is to read up on watches, you know, look at YouTube videos on watches, and I'll have a look at your YouTube video as well. So I look at them, you know, from afar, so to speak. And I buy magazines and I read through the magazines, and now that I've gotten to know Son, it gives me the opportunity. He invites me from time to time to come and visit him. So through him I get a chance to look at high-end watches that I would normally not get a chance to see. Yeah, so it's all good. It's all very exciting. That's why he'd mentioned to me the other day that you were coming today, so he asked me to come along, and I was pretty excited to see some of your watches.
Well, I'm actually excited to see some of his. Let's talk a little bit about this. Grand Seiko is a gorgeous piece.
Beautiful piece.
Hold it. Tell us a little bit what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's a gorgeous piece. They make them in, I read up on them, they make them in 3 colours. So black, blue and green. And from the pictures that I saw, the green was my favourite. I must admit, from the pictures and the live version, it's a little bit darker than from the pictures. That's why, obviously, it's good to actually see a watch live before one purchases a watch. But it's a beautiful watch.
It is a beautiful watch, and you're right. It's you know, it's funny. It's black, but it's not like black.
It's actually green.
Really, it looks so black to me.
It's
but I can, now that you mention green, I can see the green cast in it.
It's actually green. This is the green version. There's a black version and there's a blue version, and it's the spring drive system.
I love spring drive.
80% of the movement is mechanical, and then there's the it's got the quartz crystal in it, which drives the hand. So there's no battery inside. So yeah, the Grand Seiko spring drives are masterpieces. They're wonderful watches, and Grand Seiko period are wonderful.
Well, the finishing, the Shaihatsu, whatever, there's the polishing. Yeah. I can really see it, and the whole magnetic clutch aspect of the spring drive is fascinating. So, but the interesting thing is, we're looking at a €5,000 watch that has some of the most excellent watchmaking, finish, fit, movement, and yet they don't get respect. They're like Rodney Dangerfield, you know? You've got people who, well, it's the old Swiss versus Japanese argument, isn't it?
I actually think that Grand Seiko do get a lot of respect. From my perspective, from what I've been reading, they do get a lot of respect from true watch aficionados, you know.
Excellent point.
Do get a lot of respect, and it's like €5,000 is a lot for me, so I wouldn't spend €5,000 on one because I can't afford one. But you know, if you compare that to a Rolex Hulk, that's about 80% less in cost than a Rolex Hulk, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful watch.
So here's the Grand Seiko. That's a beautiful piece. Nice close-up on that one. I love that on the rehaut, it shows that beautiful, subtle day-night indicator, the silver and the black. And the beautiful bezel and the ceramics, it just pops. And that green is just very, very subtle green. It's almost a cast of green. It's like black with a green shade. It's not really, it is really, really striking. And of course, GMT is useful. It doesn't have a rotating bezel, but it is a nice piece.
So it would be hard pressed, if for me, if I had the money, I wouldn't spend all that money on a Rolex Hulk, but something like this would be a lot more accessible for a lot of people.
Well, the Rolex Hulk now is rolling around 15 to 18K.
Yeah, if not more.
If not more.
Oh, yeah, if not more. The Rolex Batman at the moment is going for about 16,000 euros, second hand. So that's the new, because Rolex have just brought out the new Batman with the Jubilee bracelet.
Are they calling it the Batgirl?
They're calling it the Batgirl.
Well, and speaking of Rolex and hybrid movements, I happen to have an Oyster Quartz here, which is also kind of a hybrid movement here. I'll take this one. You can grab this one off of me. The Oyster Quartz is also kind of a hybrid movement because what Rolex did was they put a quartz-driven motor on a 1 Hertz 11 jewel Swiss escapement.
That's amazing. I'd only ever read about this watch. This is the first time that I've seen it live. And congratulations that you have one, because even though it's a quartz, so to speak, it's a very highly sought after watch.
Well, they only made 25,000.
It's a very highly sought after watch.
I'm pleased with it.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful watch.
Well, and it's based on a Genta design because they made it for Genta designed the first Rolex Quartz watch, the Texan, I believe it was called, and they based this one off of the Texan.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Well, the Swiss had this joint venture, and they came up with this, what I think it was called the BO1 movement or whatever it was, and that was in like the first generation of Swiss Quartz watch prototypes, but they never really sold any of them.
Oh, okay.
And then this was Rolex's own in-house. It's a hybrid movement, just like, not exactly like the spring drive. Spring drive is far more elegantly executed, but then we're talking, right? And we're also talking what, 40 years of development in between.
Yeah, 40 years of development. And it's interesting because you can see the Gerald Genta aspect, through the Royal Oak design with the
integrated bracelet.
Yeah, with the integrated bracelet. Beautiful watch. So compliments.
Thank you. Now then.
So here's a bit of a close-up on the Oyster Quartz. I almost forgot to take the pictures after the interview. You could tell by the date. Was just editing this to post and realized I didn't have a picture of this. But here's a nice close-up of the Oyster Quartz for you.
Let's look at another one of Sonny's. Okay. He's got this Oris. This Oris is a beautiful piece. Yeah. Tell me what you think about. That's another GMT, by the way.
Honestly, I have not read up on this watch, so I wasn't aware of this watch. But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous watch.
It really is beautiful.
And I must say I'm a huge fan of Oris, and the reason why I'm a huge fan of Oris is they're accessible. You can pick up a nice Oris pointer date for 1,200 euros.
Sonny, how much is this Oris?
This Oris goes, let me check it. So in our shop, 2,250.
In his shop, 2,250. That's not a bad price for a beautiful.
That's not a bad price for a beautiful watch. And as I said, the Oris 65 Diver, also a beautiful watch that you can also pick up for 1,100 euros, used. Probably even a little bit cheaper than that. So that's why I'm a big fan of Oris, because they're accessible and they're a mechanical watch. So I like to sort of, whenever anybody asks me about watches, I always try and sort of lead them along the line of a nice mechanical watch. And
So this one is the Oris. This one's also a GMT. I love that starburst dial. Gorgeous bracelet. It's got brushed center links and polished outer links. Beautiful piece. Screwed lugs. Screwed links. That starburst is just gorgeous. GMT. Rotating outer bezel. Just a beautiful piece.
It's not a rotating outer.
It is.
It's fixed. Oh no, sorry, that one. Yeah.
This is a rotating outer bezel. Yeah, the Seiko, the Grand Seiko is a fixed, but this is a rotating outer bezel. So this is a more functional piece. See, the Oris is, in one sense, there we go, plus 1 point for Oris.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There you go. So,
People,
well, your beater can be quartz.
or your beater can be quartz. But then again, you can get a really nice Seiko automatic watch, you know, for the same price of a quartz one.
Like a Seiko 5, yeah.
Like the Seiko 5's nice. The new Seiko 5s are really nice. And they've actually just brought out a new series of Seiko 5s. I'm not referring to the ones they brought out about 4 or 5 months ago. They've brought out a set that relate to one of the early computer games. Mm-hmm. So they've got all these sort of computer characters in there.
I'm gonna have to look for that one myself.
Have a look for, but you know, for example, the Seiko. Oh gosh, what's it called? The name eludes me.
No problem, but Seiko makes a lot of nice pieces.
But Seiko make a lot of nice pieces, and you know, at very reasonable prices. So, for 400 euros, you can pick up, you know, an automatic Seiko, you know, so
That could be your beater.
and that can be a beater, yeah.
Well, and that brings us to something that I wanted to talk about before we closed out the episode. I'm looking for a watch that's not on. I'm looking for a watch that's not on my wrist. I don't want this episode to run too long to keep it accessible. But before I get out of here, Peter, I wanted to talk about something we touched on, and we should actually thank the quartz crisis for kicking the mechanical watch industry in the butt.
Oh, definitely. The quartz crisis of many years ago, you know, really was a shock to the Swiss, watch industry, and it did really give it a kick in the rear end. So for that reason, you know, we need to say that we're grateful.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah, in a sense, yes, yeah.
Because if it weren't for the quartz crisis, the mechanical watch industry would still be as complacent. Everybody using the same movements, the same cases, the same faces.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that, you know, we were talking about that earlier on about the Valjoux 7750 and the ETA movement, because the Swatch Group, who owns Hamilton, who owns Omega and a number of different watch companies, also happens to own the ETA movements. So there were a lot of boutique houses that, like Steinhardt, for example, Steinhardt, that was using ETA movements. So ETA sort of said, no, I'm putting a stop to that. So that also gave the industry a bit of a kick in the butt, and a lot of companies have moved to the Solita movements. But it's interesting times. I was, you know, concerned that the coronavirus was going to affect, you know, the watch industry substantially, because I was reading online that sales had gone down drastically. But I was speaking to Son the other day, and he actually has told me that it's picked up again. So sales have picked up again. So I haven't bought anything recently, but apparently watch sales are starting to pick up. Watch sales are starting to pick up again. Yeah.
Well, I must admit, I took advantage of the down in the lowest part of the craziness of Corona at early March, and everybody was having trouble. I picked up this Jaeger coat for about 4,000.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a beautiful watch. Congratulations, Alex. And Alex, the The watch that I was referring to earlier on that's quite accessible that I really like is the Seiko Turtle.
Oh, yeah, that's a good piece.
You know, you can pick one up for 300-400 euros. It's an automatic piece, and they've got, you know, different various colours. It's a beautiful piece. So, yeah, unless someone is buying a swatch, you know, if somebody only wants to spend 150 euros, unless somebody's, you know, buying a swatch watch, and I really like swatches, I must admit. They're fun watches, you know, different colours.
I got a System 51 myself.
I have a System 51 too.
Every collector has to have at least one.
But if a friend asks me, Pete, you know, what should I get? I'd always say, you know, get a mechanical watch. And interestingly enough, now Seiko has brought out a re-edition of the Captain Willard, and that's a friend of mine has one. And there's two colours. There's one in black with the steel bracelet and one in green with the rubber bracelet. Yeah, he has one in green with the rubber bracelet, and it's stunning. It's really.
I'll see if I can insert it before I.
Yeah, I'll ask him. You know, if I'll take a picture with my phone and I can send it to you.
Bingo. And
Yeah.
we'll throw it in for our audience.
Yeah, and he managed to pick that up for 830 euros. Which was pretty good, because I was actually quite surprised, because Seiko was selling them for about 1150, so 1,150 euros. And compared to the Turtle, it doesn't seem like a huge jump. But it's a huge jump in price. So hence why the Seiko Turtle or the Seiko Samurai, you know, for 300-400 euros, a really beautiful watch.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about all of these watches. And before we close out, I deliberately brought the least expensive watch. The least expensive watch in my collection is one of my favorites, actually. And it's the Vostok Amphibia, the Russian diver.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So here we have the Vostok Amphibia, a really beautiful piece, a clean design, a little shiny, but some people like it like that. This specific model is called the Scuba Dude for very obvious reasons. You could get the Amphibia with quite a great variety of dials, everything from battleships to paratroopers to you name it, similar to what the Kommandarski offers. And it's a really inexpensive, cool-looking piece.
It's beautiful. I just recently saw a YouTube review on the new Vostok Amphibia.
Yeah, they're changing the spelling.
Yeah. And it's black. It's PVD. And it's a beautiful watch. Now, that is a beautiful watch. I love it, Alex.
And you don't even have to spend a lot of money, and you get a nice piece.
No, you get, what, $300, $400?
No, I paid 100 euros for this.
Get out of here. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's got it's like an SR-71. It gives with the environment, so it gets more, the water pressure makes it more waterproof.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
Yes, and I consider it, if you can like it or you can hate it.
I love it.
But you can't say it's a bad watch.
No.
And if you say it's a bad watch, then it says something about you, not the watch.
Exactly. Oh, no, but that's why it's got such a huge following. It's got a huge following.
Huge following. I've got a Seamaster, and I still wear this.
Fantastic.
Isn't it?
So you paid 100 euros for that?
Amazon. You can buy them on Amazon right now.
Fantastic.
And they threw in the NATO strap.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Wow.
So, Peter, it has been incredibly fun talking to you.
Incredibly fun talking to you.
And it's been fun having all of you lean over our shoulders and listen to two geeks talk about watches.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you, Alex. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine.
Oh,
That's right, Corona.
so Corona, we must be doing the right thing, yes.